What's up, guys? This is Ian here, coach of your Ladner Lanturn, bringing you guys our aABL Week 3 Team Builder. This week we are taking on Devin Rosa and his Detroit Decidueyes. If you guys kept up with me in the D&D regular season, we played Devin twice because he was in our division, the Lugia division. No, sorry, were we the Ho division? I think we were the Ho division. We played him twice, and we managed to beat him both times. The first time was a really close match that came down to high jump kick hitting, and the second match was a lot different in terms of how the match played out. But this time we're playing him in the aABL, the A-Drive Army Battle League. Both of us have had a pretty poor showing at the beginning of the season. I think his match against Akuyasa was really close, and I actually thought that he probably could have won that game. And then in terms of our games, we got smacked by D. Danley week 1, and then I think we had a really close match against Fizzle last week in week 2 that we probably could have come out on top on. I was thinking through a lot of scenarios and sort of trying to decide what was going on there. Before I go through Devin's team, let's talk about some transactions that I made. These are effective this week. I'm not bringing either of the new transactions to my team this week, but they are effective this week. So we ended up dropping Flygon for Minior, and the way that the rules work is that because Flygon was a Z user, Minior inherits the Z usership. Minior is a pretty horrific Z user. Would have much rather had used. I would have much rather used the Z on my other Pokemon that I did the transaction for. But since we picked up Minior, I didn't need Ambipom anymore, and so I ended up dropping Ambipom for Venomoth. So we end up with a net loss of 5 points of speed, I believe. We don't lose out on any U-turn because both Minior and Venomoth do get U-turn as well. Despite the fact that Ambipom and Flygon are more likely to run U-turn, Venomoth and Minior can both run it. We gained some really good setup, which is kind of what I feel like my team has been lacking, is a solid setup threat. So we have Minior, which actually gets 4 types of setup, as my friend Magic told me. It gets a Totemize, Calm Mind, Shell Smash, and something else that I'm not going to try and dig into the depths of my Discord server for, but it gets reliable setup. Venomoth is a really good Quiver Dance setup mon because of Tinted Lens. It can just body things with Bug Buzz. Again, I'm not bringing either of these. I'd already prepped before I made these transactions, and I just sort of wanted to get these transactions out of the way so that I wouldn't have to worry about dealing with them later. But they are on the roster now. I just wanted to let you guys know that we don't have Ambipom or Flygon anymore. Flygon's ground typing I already had covered by Nidoking. Whatever. I lose a Dragon. I actually don't think the Dragon is that important of a type in the Draft League format. I think Ice is much more important than Dragon is, and we have Weavile to cover the Ice. And in terms of Venomoth, I know we already had a Bug type in a Selgor and a Poison type in Nidoking, but the setup is so much more valuable to me. Nidoking isn't usually going to be clicking Poison Stab anyways. It really likes to click its Ground Stab more, and a Selgor is kind of more of a utility Pokemon in the first place, so that's kind of that. Anyways, let's go over Devin's team. He's got Kyurem Black, which is a Z user, Kommo-o, which is a Z user, Lycanroc Dusk, Meloetta, Golisopod, Alomomola, Articuno, which is a Z user, Mega Aggron, Mew, Celebi, Hitmonlee, and Guzzlord. I think I'm not expecting Kommo-o. Mega Gardevoir beats it unless he's bringing a soundproof variant, and even if that's the case, I can just run Moonblast and smack it. I also think with the addition of Minior to my roster, Kommo-o doesn't really make a whole lot of sense just because Acrobatics kind of destroys it. He could bring it. I don't know. He could bring it. I'm not expecting Articuno. Articuno is like a horrific Pokemon. It's like really bad in draft format. I have a Rock type now, so that's kind of why I'm thinking that he's not going to bring it, is because I have Minior to stop that as well. Rotom-Wash completely hard walls that thing unless it's carrying Freeze Dry, and Skarmory sets up Stealth Rocks really easily against his team. So yeah. Last, I don't think he's going to bring Guzzlord. Everything else I see coming. Guzzlord is another mon that just gets absolutely destroyed by Mega Gardevoir, and we'll talk about that right now. He has priority in Lycanroc Dusk with a Celerock, Meloetta with Quick Attack, Golisopod with Sucker Punch, Aqua Jet, and First Impression. Mew gets a bunch of priority. I know it gets Vacuum Wave for sure. I'm pretty sure it gets Sucker Punch as well. And he's got Hitmonlee with Mach Punch. In terms of hazard setting, he has Como-O to set up Stealth Rocks, Lycanroc for Stealth Rocks, Golisopod with Spikes, Mew with Stealth Rocks, Aggron with Stealth Rocks, and Celebi with Stealth Rocks. His removal options are Articuno with Defog, Hitmonlee with Rapid Spin, and Mew with Defog. I don't think any of those would click Defog against my team, so I kind of have a strategy around that. He has 4 times weaknesses in Como-O to Fairy, Articuno to Rock, Celebi to Bug, and Guzzlord to Fairy. So he's got quite a big Fairy weakness, as you can see. The only way he's really patching up his Fairy weakness is through Mega Aggron. That's actually his only Fairy resist on the entire team. He has one other weakness, or three other weaknesses that aren't 4 times weaknesses to Fairy. The Kyurem Black, Meloetta if it's in Pirouette form, and Hitmonlee. So as you'll see on the screen, we are bringing Mega Gardevoir this week because it absolutely blows back his team. And we'll kind of see how that goes. I thought Mega Gardevoir blew back Fizzle's team, and I prepped around him bringing Registeel to wall my Mega Gardevoir because it was such a huge threat. But that might have been a mistake, and I probably should have just brought it. So, anyways, I think we can start getting into my team now. Yeah. So first up, Skarmory or Acier. We're bringing a leftover set with no attacks. It's Stealth Rock, Spikes, Whirlwind, and Roost. His team is really weak to hazards. The combination of Stealth Rocks and Spike stacking just kind of wins, I think. Roost for some recovery, and I've got Whirlwind on there for phasing around over the hazards. Skarmory comes in really reliably on Mega Aggron and Lycanroc, and I can just set up hazards in front of them, basically. I can also come in on the Golisopod if that's what wants to show up, because Golisopod can't really touch me either, and I can set up hazards on that. Como-O to an extent. If it wants to start Dragon Dancing, then I have Whirlwind anyways. Kyurem Black, Ice Beam kind of threatens me a little bit. Hitmonlee, I mean, I'm not taking attacks super duper well. A physical Guzzlord I could come in on too. Physical Celebi is really easy to wall with this. And potentially a physical Mew. I don't know what kind of sets he would run, but there you go. Alomomola, we can switch in on that and start doing stuff as well, because he can't Toxic me, and he can't... I don't care about a Scald Burn, because I'm not running any attacks. So basically the plan with Skarmory is to be able to bring it in on any of those, or just lead with it outright, and get up my hazards. That's kind of the idea there. I know Devin's playstyle, and I know he does not like to switch basically at all. That's kind of how he played against me, at least the last 2 times, is that he didn't really switch around. He sort of just stayed in with the threat until it died. So I'm imagining that I can just leave Skarmory in on something and get up all my hazards. So, yeah, I'm running a tiny bit of speed on here. I'm running enough speed. The suggested spread has a weird amount of speed on it, and I know John, aka Pokemon, sort of just like threw on speed on his Skarmory. Like he threw on the base EV spread on his Skarmory against A-Drive in their NPA battle, and I was like, what? Why? But I'm running a very specific amount of speed for a reason. We're not running the 24 speed, which is the recommended amount. I'm running 16 speed to outrun Adamant Golisopod by 1 point. So if he's Adamant Max Speed Golisopod, we're going to outrun it by 1 point and start Spike stacking and Stealth Rock stacking and stuff on it before it can get an attack off. What's really cool with Golisopod too is if I Whirlwind it in on Spikes and Stealth Rocks, that's like 30-something%. So then if it comes back in at some point, then it'll get emergency exited into something else which has to take the hazard damage. So that's really cool in my opinion. I thought that was really neat. In another league, I brought a red card Suicune with Roar this week, and I ended up just like phasing 2 things over rocks, and it was a lot of damage. So. Yeah, next up, Serena. We're bringing Les Haunches. Serena, we're bringing in Assault Vest variant this week with Queenly Majesty. Last week we brought a really cool Black Belt variant, but this time we're actually bringing the AB set. Even though we had 4 attacks last week, we're bringing just the standard set. U-Turn for momentum. I mean, U-Turn's like pretty good against a lot of stuff. It's super effective against Meloetta. It's really good against the Celebi. I can come in on any one of Celebi's attacks and just U-Turn on his face. Same with a specially offensive Mew. I can just sort of like come in on that. I can block a Cellarrock from the Lycanroc. Well, I can block all of his priority. So this is actually a really good switch into Golisopod if he wants to click First Impression as well. I have Trop Kick on there partially because of the attack lower. and mostly because it's more accurate. I know I actually hit the Power Whip last week, but I'd rather have Drop Kick against things like a Como-O, Kyurem Black sort of thing. Knockoff is just sort of to get rid of some items. It's a really good thing to do against the Mew, basically, and the Alomomola potentially as well. And I've got Play Rough on there to hit the Como-O 4 times super effectively, as well as the Guzzlord, although I could also U-turn on the Guzzlord. Running max HP. Oh, I didn't talk about Skarmory. It's our defensive wall. That's why it's max defense almost and max HP. Serena is max attack adamant with almost max HP, and then I just split the last 2 points between defense and Spidef. It doesn't really matter because the Spidef is going to be boosted by the Assault Vest anyways. But yeah, this also outspeeds Adamant Golisopod by 1 point, running no speed. So I kind of just didn't put any points into speed because that's kind of the tier that I wanted to hit. He's got an interesting set of speed tiers where he's got 2 base 100s, a base 110, and he's got like 2 base 85s and a base 87. So, but between that, he's got a Alomomola at 65, which does not run speed, and then he's got Mega Aggron at 50, which does not run speed, and then I feel like he could bring speed on a few things. That's kind of my thought process, at least. Next up is Mega Gardevoir and Magnifique. We're bringing a Trace set, so I want to trace something like. If I'm just like switching my Gardevoir in, I can trace something like Celebi's Natural Cure or something like that, or Mew Synchronize. I know I could run my own Synchronize, but tracing something like Soundproof on Como-O could be neat. I don't know, or at least figuring out if it's Soundproof Como-O. Tracing like Filter on Mega Aggron could be neat, just like coming in and tracing. Serene Grace on Meloetta. I mean, obviously I have to first turn Mega Evolve, so who knows? Excuse me. Regenerator and Alomomola is probably my best bet. Switching in, getting the Regenerator from Alomomola, taking an attack, and then switching out instantly. I've got Hyper Voice, Psychic, Substitute, and Calm Mind on this set, so Hyper Voice obviously will not hit a soundproof Como-O, but Hyper Voice bodies everything else. Despite that, I have Psychic for the Como-O. Como-O is more bulky on the physical side, so I have the Psychic to hit it on the special side still, which means that Como-O can't wall the set, which is kind of my idea with that. Sub, because Sub is kind of hard to play around for a lot of players, and I don't think that he has the best ways to deal with a sub Mega Gardevoir. Like Mew, it has to run like poison coverage. Basically, he needs poison coverage or steel coverage to be able to break my subs. Mega Aggron obviously like flattens my sub, but if with enough Calm Minds up and Mega Aggron like not switching in, I can destroy that with a Hyper Voice as well, or a Psychic. I know both of them are resisted hits, but Mega Aggron's like pretty frail on the special side compared to the physical side, so dealing with it that way is like usually the best way around it. We're running a max speed set with max special attack. This lets us tie his base 100 mons, being Celebi and Mew. I thought about running Shadow Ball for both of them, but Hyper Voice just hits both of them ridiculously hard, and I believe Hyper Voice is more base power because of Pixelate plus Stab versus just super effective damage. So that's Mega Gardevoir. Tears an absolute hole through his team. He doesn't have much that outspeeds it. He would have to run a Scarfer or Meloetta Pirouette form, which doesn't even matter because that thing dies to a Hyper Voice, or Lycanroc Dusk, which I have Serena as a really good switch into, or Skarmory to get up hazards on. Next up is Rotom-Wash. Now, if you look at his team and you consider his typings, he does not have a ground type. So, we're bringing Choice Specs Rotom-Wash. I can Volt Switch and Thunderbolt freely against his team. He has a few electric resists, a few, being Celebi, Guzzlord, Como-O, Kyurem. So he's got 4 electric resists, not the worst in the world. They also resist the Hydro Pump, but I can always Volt Switch around freely. I've got the Trick on there to be able to trick Choice Specs on something like a Alomomola and cripple that thing. Trick a Choice Specs on something like a Lycanroc could also be really cool. Choice Specs on Hitmonlee, another really good one that I could get off there. Golisopod as well, which doesn't really run special moves. So Volt Switch and Thunderbolt are the electric stabs. Again, he doesn't have... Thunderbolt is going to do an absolute chunk to the Mega Aggron, by the way, Choice Specs Thunderbolt. And Volt Switch is just really good momentum. I can kind of just like lead with this set and Volt Switch onto anything because I live any hit, I would guess, except like a Bloom Doom, potentially from like a Celebi, maybe? Hydro Pump's there just because it's water coverage, which I thought might be neat. you know, I want to kind of abuse the choice specs is kind of what I'm saying with that. It's going to hit the Mega Aggron ridiculously hard as well. We're running a lot of speed on here, not completely max speed, but we're outrunning his base 85 mons, so we're going to be faster than the Komao and the Articuno. We couldn't outrun the Hitmonlee because it's going to outspeed us by 1 point anyways. But we're outrunning his base 85 mons in Komao and Articuno anyways. I don't think either of them are coming, but if they do, then I'm outspeeding them. Max special attack with the last into HP, because it sort of splits the defenses, which are already evened out. So next up is Girder, or Constructeur. I think Girder has an absolutely phenomenal matchup this game. He does not have very good fighting resists, and his fighting resists are weak to knockoff. Excuse me. So Meloetta takes it neutrally. Meloetta Pirouette is super effectively hit by fighting. Kieran Black's weak. Lycanroc's weak. Mega Aggron's weak. Articuno takes it neutrally, but Articuno is really frail. Guzzlord's weak. Goliathspot actually does resist it, and it's a very bulky boy, so I'm going to have to knock that thing off. Goliathspot actually has base 140 defense. It's a very good physical wall. Alomomola is going to take hits really well. Mew and Celebi both don't like taking knockoffs, and I have an Ice Punch on there to mainly hit the Komao for super effective damage, just because Komao takes physical hits really well. And so Drain Punch, even though it's neutral, is not going to do a whole lot to it. It's a really interesting EV spread that I'm running here. So I'm actually running Adamant 4 attack with max defense and max HP. This is because I can take some hits and then get a few bulk ups off. I didn't really need the attack investment considering I'm running bulk up, and I know his tendency to not switch around, so I can pretty much stay in on something like a Mega Aggron and keep bulking up in its face and then drain punching my health back is kind of the idea there. I've got Guts on there. If I want to set up on the Alomomola, if he Scald Burns me, all the better for me, because then my attack's raised by 1 stage. That's 1 more boost, basically. I'll basically be +7 at the end of all of it. No, I'll hit +6 early, because +6 is the highest you can go, or it might boost it higher than that. I'm actually not entirely sure on the mechanic there, but Girder is going to get to a ridiculous amount of attack if he burns me with the Alomomola, and I can actually boost up on the Alomomola, and if he burns me, then all of a sudden at +6 Drain Punches an Oko. That's kind of what I EV'd this around. That's Girder. Again, I think it's got a really good matchup against his team. It's super bulky with the Eviolite, so it can tank hits really well. The only thing I'm not really taking super well is like a Psychic from Meloetta, Mew, or Celebi. I actually take Psyshock really well. Celebi doesn't get Psyshock, but Mew and Meloetta both do. And I can take a Psyshock really well because it hits on my defense, which is a lot higher than my special defense. So I have to watch out for the Psychic plays, but besides that, you know, this is a strong Girder set. Last but not least is Nidoking, which is just a breaker. I think having all of the hazards from Skarmory means that basically this Nidoking can kind of just clean late game if I need it to. I know he likes running a lot of HP on stuff, so I might just naturally outspeed some things. I've got Earth Power, Sludge Wave, Thunderbolt, and Toxic on here. It's kind of just good coverage against his team. Dual Stab hits a lot of stuff really well. Sludge Wave hits stuff really well neutrally. Earth Power is there for things like the Lycanroc and the Mega Aggron. And the Komao, I believe, because fighting resists poison, doesn't it? Or poison resists fighting. I can't remember. Thunderbolt's there for the Alomomola and the Glyspod. And Toxic is there just in case. I can Toxic the Mew and it can't synchronize it back to me because I'm a poison type, so that's kind of cool. Although I probably wouldn't stay in on the Mew, I'd just catch it switching in or something like that. Or the Celebi even, but Celebi's got Natural Cure, so who really cares? Running Max Speed Timid, which lets us speed tie with his base 85s, things like Komao and Articuno, once again. I can resist Hitmonlee's attacks unless it's running Earthquake. And because of the Life Orb with Sheer Force, I'm not taking any recoil damage from all 3 of my moves. Max Special Attack to get the most out of my Sheer Force boosts, and that's pretty much it with Nidoking. Worthy to note, if he's running like an Adamant or Modest Kyurem Black, we will outspeed that. If he's running... where is it? Potentially, if he's running a Modest Meloetta, we'll outspeed that as well. We may outspeed Mew. We'll probably outspeed Mew if it's bulky. We'll probably outspeed Celebi if it's bulky. We'll outspeed an Adamant Hitmonlee as well, naturally. And that's basically his entire team. potentially. So besides Lycanroc Dusk, which can actually just wreck our face with the Drill Run, but that's kind of how I'm playing around with Nidoking. So I think this is a really cool game. We don't really have a good special switch in, but his biggest special threat to my team, I think, is like a special Mew, which Mega Gardevoir switches in on reasonably well because of its natural Spadef. So we'll see how this game goes. I'm looking to pick up a W. I know Devin's looking to pick up a W too because we're both sort of winless at this point. But keep an eye out for the match. We were playing early in the week, and I will catch you guys later.